What I'm going to show you today is what the sound design process has been like for The Darkness Rolled Over Her. The Darkness Rolled Over Her is a feature film that I wrote, produced, directed. You can go to thedarknessrolledoverher.movie. I'll put that in the chat right now. Thedarknessrolledoverher.movie. And you can go there, you can sign up and get the ebook for free, which will also put you on our mailing list, which you can get off of at any time, including right away. But if you stay on it, you'll get updates about the film, progress, release date, and all that kind of stuff. Also, you can go to skidmore.substack.com, and I've got some articles there already, some behind the scenes stuff about the film, as well as a lot of other content. It's also a place where some people have been supporting me. I don't have Twitch subscriptions set up yet, so feel free to check that out. Obviously, no obligation. But what I'm going to show you today is what the sound design process has been like for a lot of this. So what you're looking at here, in this window here, this is Logic Pro. This is my digital audio workstation that I'm using on my Mac laptop. And you're looking at this sound file right here is a sound file that we recorded for the scene that I'm going to show you, which you can see in the box down here below me. This is going to be the video of what I'm playing here in this interface. And so when we recorded, when we went out to this spot, in this part of the film, they're about to go fishing. This is the very beginning of sort of the fishing segment of the film, which lasts about 20 minutes. And they're supposed to be out in the middle of nowhere. Well, when we recorded this, this is actually like right under an overpass. And so there's lots of traffic going by, trucks going by, and you'll hear that in the recording. So let me play the recording for you and get a sense of what it sounded like. All of the fishing stuff that we recorded, this is pretty much what it sounded like. So here's the original audio. Oh, by the way, there's two mics recording audio here. One on Roy, who's the old man, one on Gwen, who is the younger woman. And so you will hear Roy's voice nice and clear, and you won't really hear Gwen, and that's because we're recording her on her mic separately. So this is what Roy's mic, this is what the recording sounded like from his mic that he was wearing.
I didn't bring no snacks or nothing. I got some bottled water here in the backpack if you want to tote it around.
Hear that semi driving by? And going fast. So it's not just like there's a truck way out in the middle of nowhere where they are. It's like obviously we're by an interstate.
This spot here's a little easier for me to get in.
So you can hear a little bit of the car sounds, the doors opening and closing, but they're kind of muffled because the mic he's wearing is under his shirt. It's really great for capturing his voice, but for capturing everything else, it's not great. You can hear him moving around and doing things, but you can also hear all this traffic. You can hear that truck going by. So we're recording this, and while we're out there recording, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like this is going to be, I'm going to have to re-record all of this dialogue later. Like it was just a nightmare I was not looking forward to. Well, by the time I got to where I was ready to actually do some editing on this, Final Cut had introduced a feature within Final Cut called voice isolation. And it's available there in the audio inspector in Final Cut, and it's a slider from 0 to 100. And at 0, it's your original recording. At 100, it's turned all the way up, this plugin. And what the plugin does is it uses machine learning, kind of a AI type thing, uses machine learning to figure out what's voice and what isn't, take away everything that isn't without taking away any of the voice. So there's been noise reduction before. There's been noise reduction in Final Cut and at lots of other places before, but lots of times it would take away from the voice and make the voice not sound very good. This is able to take away the noise and put the voice back without having any noise in it, and it does it in a really remarkable way. It sounds amazing, sounds fantastic. So that's built into Final Cut. Well, what's happening under the hood, it's using a plugin called Sound Isolation, AU Sound Isolation. AU plugins, audio unit plugins, are available at the system level, which means any program that uses AU plugins can have access to this plugin. So that's pretty much any digital audio workstation, Pro Tools, Audacity, Logic Pro, which is what I'm using. So I went into Logic Pro and I found the AU Sound Isolation and I brought it in, and sure enough, it works in Logic just great. So I'm going to give you an example of what that does now. So I'm going to replay a little section of this here where you can really hear that semi.
Bottled water here in the backpack if you want to tote it around.
All right, and now this green line down here, this is the sound isolation plugin. I've got it set at 0 now, so I'm going to replay that same section, and I'm going to pull the sound isolation up so you can hear it change in real time.
Bottled water here in the backpack if you want to tote it around.
So notice it takes down the truck, but it doesn't take him away. But we also lose him moving around. We lose the wind, the trees, the birds.
This spot here is a little easier for me to get in.
But his voice is crystal clear, right? So it's really nice for voice, but that's all it does is isolate voice, right? It takes everything else out. So it's a big help because I have his voice crystal clear without all the traffic noise. But the downside is, of course, I lose everything else. So what are we going to do? So I'm going to this is the original uncut audio. I'm going to turn that off for a second, and I'm going to solo Roy's audio as we have it in the film and Gwen's audio as we have it in the film, which is basically just this right here. And I'm going to play this section again and let you hear what's left after we put Gwen and Roy's audio in there and use the voice isolation plugin and sort of chop out all the other little clicks and extraneous stuff. Here's what we have left.
Yeah. I didn't bring no snacks or nothing.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. I got some bottled water here in the backpack if you want to tote it around.
Yeah, just set it there.
Huge sections of silence where you would be hearing all of this stuff that they're doing.
This spot here is a...
You'd be hearing them walking around in these leaves and everything else. So, and it's not there. So what do we do? Well, we got to put it back. We have to, and this is all the different steps of sound design. So there's no music in this scene, so we'll skip over that. But there's lots of sound effects that we need to add in order to make this sound realistic. So what are the sound effects that we need to do? Let me close this up here. Well, let's start with the backgrounds because that's sort of the easiest to understand. So one of the first things that gets lost is just what it sounds like to be in the space where we're recording. So right here, first of all, I'll show you this. This is a forest track. It's just air and birds, basically. Just what it would sound like to be outside. And I've combined that with this track here, which is water. It's a river or a stream. And so by combining those together, this is what it sounds like to be in this space. And what's beautiful about both of these recordings is they are surround sound recordings. They are recorded with 5 different microphones out in this space. So it's not just one sound file coming through all the speakers, but it's actually completely different sound recordings from the center, the left, the right. So when you play it and you sit in the sweet spot, I mean, it feels like you're outside just from the sound alone. And that's one of the things I really wanted to capture for this fishing stuff is I wanted the audience to feel like they were outside, out in the river with them. And so using these surround sound recordings for the backgrounds works really well. Okay, so we got their voice, we got backgrounds. Now we need to add in everything else. There's 2 types of sound effects, apart from backgrounds. There's 2 types of sound effects that you would have in a movie. You would have hard effects and Foley. So hard effects are probably the easiest to understand right away. Hard effects are just you have something in a sound library and you bring it in and you drop it in. So either you have it on in the old days you would have it, you go tape to tape or something like that, or you'd have it played from record to wax disc, In the digital age, you would have a file and you would drop it in. So that's what we have here. Either something in a cloud somewhere or maybe on a hard drive. So these sort of teal sections right here, these regions are hard effects. And these right here primarily have to do with Roy's car. So let's just solo this first track here. And this is Roy's car doors opening. I'll solo this track here. Okay, now these two recordings, even though they line up perfectly with what you're seeing on screen, are not from that day. They were from months later when it was our last day that we had with the truck, and we just recorded a bunch of sounds that it made. Door open, door closed, seat forward, seat back, windshield wipers, whatever. Any sound the truck made, turning on, idling, turning off, driving around, pavement, gravel, we just recorded a whole bunch of stuff that the truck did. And I've got that in a library so that I can go and access that and bring that in as needed. So any of the sounds that you're hearing from the truck in this particular shot, none of it's from the production audio. I just played you the production audio. It was just voices, nothing else in there, right? So now this has the recordings from the car, and they're just lined up by eye and dropped in. Those are hard effects. Here's another great example of hard effects in the track below. So this sound file, I know you're not able to read the header probably in your low resolution, but what it says is objects, furniture, soft leather sofa, couch, sit down, stand up. Okay, so this is from a sound library that I subscribe to called Soundly. They have an app where you can search for sounds, select the part of the sound that you want to use. You hit one key and it dumps it right into Logic exactly where you want it. It's really awesome. It's been a huge help in working on this film. And so when Gwen's getting out of the truck, like that should make a sound. Like I should hear her, like, her body weight coming out of the seat, the springs of the seat, the fabric, her body sliding across the fabric, that sort of thing. So I found this and I thought that it worked best for what we were doing. Again, this is not a car sound. This is a leather sofa, but it works. Sometimes you can't find the right sound, or sometimes the right sound doesn't sound right, believe it or not. And so you have to get creative. And so I found this leather sofa, someone sitting down, getting up out of a leather sofa, and I thought that these sounds worked. And so here's this sound by itself. Just the sounds of somebody sliding out of a chair. All right. So that's all that's going on there. That's a hard effect. It's just dropped in, kind of synced up. Maybe I could sync that up a little better. Oh, there's another one. Actually, I think that one was for Roy. This was the one I think that is for Gwen. Yeah, this one's Gwen's. Right, so you can see how that, again, it's just a sound file. It's just dropped in there. So whether it's a sound I recorded myself, like Roy's truck, or a sound I found in a library, like these leather sofa sounds, a hard effect is something that's pulled off a library and dropped in. There's some more things, truck doors slamming, that sort of thing. Okay, what else is there? Let's zoom out here to the whole scene. There we go. Well, then there's, apart from hard effects, there is Foley. Foley is any sound that you record as you're watching the film go by so that it is in sync with the action that's going on screen. The easiest example to give is footsteps. You're watching the person walk on screen, and you're walking along with them and recording that sound. That's when most people think of Foley, that's what they think of. And so I've got a whole bunch of Foley tracks here, and here are the footsteps that we did. So at Noah's house, he's got a shed in the backyard that is set up to record Foley. And for footsteps in particular, we have all kinds of services. For inside, we've got linoleum and carpet and hardwood. For outside, we've got concrete and pavement and grass and leaves and gravel, different kinds of gravel, sharp gravel, round gravel, little gravel, big gravel. And we just lay it out for whatever the scene is and record the footsteps. I do the recording. He does the performing. We both have a TV that we're looking at so we can get everything in sync. And it's worked out really well. So here is Noah's footsteps of Gwen in this scene. So I'm going to solo this track. And here's Noah in his sneakers walking on the pavement and leaf combination that we did for the scene. All right, so it's pretty nice. And because he's wearing pants as we do this, we get a little bit of cloth noise also, because you don't really think about it, but like just listen. Whenever my arms move against myself, like you can really hear it. But even little small subtle movements, there's a little bit of cloth noise just from the cloth and, in your arms. And if you're wearing like 2 layers of clothing, the 2 layers rubbing against each other. And it's one of those sounds that you don't think about, you don't notice, but if it's missing, something doesn't sound right, And so just because he's wearing long pants when we do a lot of these, we get some of that cloth noise in there along with the footsteps. So that's really great. So here at the end, she walks through this big pile of leaves, and we were just on regular, concrete or whatever at the time. So this is what it sounds like versus what it looks like. So, it sounds pretty good, but like she's walking through these big pile of leaves. Like we feel like we should hear leaves. So we went back and did just a second pass just right here on the end. And we did it for just the leaves. And we didn't do the steps. We just did the swishing of the leaves. I think he may have even done this with his hands. Okay, so then when you put those together, the footsteps and the leaves, it sounds like this. So you still get the impact of the foot, but you also get the swoosh of the leaves, and those things are sort of stacked on top of each other. A lot of the sounds that you might hear in a film are 2 or 3 or 4 sounds sort of stacked together to make the sound that the sound designer wants. So that's how we did Gwen's footsteps. Then we did Roy's footsteps, just the same way. When Noah does Roy's footsteps, he puts on the waders that we used in the film so that we get that authentic sort of vinyl sound. So you're very often not only hearing the steps and the material that he's stepping on, but you're hearing the sound of the waders themselves. And you can hear them kind of rumpling and crunching as he walks around, right? So that's Roy's footsteps. So you can see both of those run the length of the scene there, a couple different takes. You can see I had to chop them up a little bit to kind of get everything into sync, but it works pretty good. But footsteps aren't the only sounds that you have to replace in a scene like this. Let's go on down here and find what else, because they're handling a lot of props. Like even right here, Roy's getting bags out of the truck and Gwen's fetching things out of the back of the truck. So one of the first things that she gets is Roy's fishing rod, his fly rod. Gets it out of the truck. And as you can see here at the top of the screen there, you see how it's actually in 2 pieces. So put together, it's a 6-7 foot rod. But if you pull it apart, then it's smaller, and then you can put it in a car for transport. It's a little easier to carry around, that sort of thing. So she's holding it. And anybody who's been fishing and had your rod apart like this, it makes a very recognizable sound. And so we wanted to make sure that we captured that sound. And so that's what this track is right here. It's just the sound of Roy's rod, including being picked up off of a metal surface because she's picking it up out of the truck bed. So listen to this. So you're hearing her hands against it. You're hearing them batting against each other. And I think it's really nice, works really well. You might even hear a little bit of an echo or reverb on the sound. I've got this track highlighted, and so over here on the left, you'll see there's this little blue thing here, and that's a plugin. It's called Space Designer. I'll just open it up for you. And so this is the Space Designer controls, and it's got the length. It's a reverb echo type of plugin. And so you've got the length of the reverb, and you've got a lot of other controls here, like how much reverb there is, if it's just a little bit, if it's a lot. You can change the EQ of the sound, and lots of other things here. There's lots of presets built in. I'm using one here that I use a lot, which is medium outdoor spaces, one called Open Ambiance, and it just kind of sounds like you're just outside. And that's great because we're recording these sounds really close to the mic, and so we have these really clean, crisp recordings, and they're so clean and crisp, they don't sound real. It doesn't sound like a sound that was really happening the day that we were filming this. But if you put a Space Designer on it, it puts a little bit of space between the viewer and the sound and makes it feel a little more real, sort of stitches it into the scene a little better. Also, another thing that we do is we come into the surround sound, and we make sure that this is coming primarily from up front towards the center speaker. And what that does is because all of our production audio that we record is mono, is a single channel, and so it's all pretty much coming out of the center. And so by pushing the sounds toward the center, that stitches it in a little better, makes it sound a little more like production audio, keeps it from sounding fake. So that's Roy's rod. We also have three things down here that are all the bags that Roy is getting out. So I'll just play through a couple of these. So this is him getting the bag out of the truck here, setting it on a metal surface. Then Gwen reaches in, she picks it up. And so even her wearing it, Noah's got it over his shoulder. He's moving around as she moves around. That little heft in the shoulder. All of this is recorded in post. All this is recorded as we're watching the movie on a TV screen, watching it go by. We've got one for Roy's krill. His krill is what he's putting over his shoulder right here. That whatever fish he catches will go into the krill. Again, Noah's watching it on TV and he's just putting the krill on over. You might even ask yourself, if you're having to redo all this stuff, why don't you just get those sounds while you're on set? Well, we wanted to, but we had all of that traffic and such going by. And so if we could have found a really quiet place to film all of this, then yeah, we probably wouldn't need to do as much of this. But unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. Time we have, and the location we didn't. So we've taken the time instead to do this. The last little prop recording sound that I have here is Roy's little green fly bag that he has in his hand there, and the net. And so Noah just had those in his hand and tried to recreate, because Roy reaches in and grabs them here. And so I've got that solo. This is what that sounds like. They just have some little jangly things on them and some Velcro. They would be making some kind of sound. And they'd make some kind of sound in his hand, and so that's what we've recreated there. So those are all the things that we've put in. So we have their original dialogue, and then we have their footsteps. Then we have all these props, the rod, and the bags. And we have the hard effects, most of which is the car sounds or the sofa sounds for them getting out of the chairs, out of the seats. And then we have the background sounds. And all of that stitches together into the full production audio. So once again, I'm going to play it. Production audio only. Okay, so I'm soloing Gwen's dialogue and Roy's dialogue. Okay, so this is just the production audio. And then I'm going to play the whole thing with everything all together. So here's just the production audio.
I didn't bring no snacks or nothing.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. I got some bottled water here in the backpack if you want to tote it around.
Yeah, just set it there.
This spot here's a little easier for me to get in. Well, follow me.
Now here's the same scene as it is now, basically finished.
I didn't bring no snacks or nothing.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. I got some bottled water here in the backpack if you want to tote it around.
Yeah, just set it there.
This spot here's a little easier for me to get in. Well, follow me.
And that is the magic of sound design. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will be streaming more as I'm continuing to work on the film. I'll be streaming as we record some of the Foley stuff. We still got to record all of the Foley for the fishing stuff. So that'll include footsteps going through water. That's one reason we haven't done it yet, is just because of the mess. So as they get down into the water and are walking through the water, we'll need to record, their legs swishing through water, because once again, the voice isolation is great, but it takes out all of that sloshing around. So here I've got the backgrounds in, I've got the production audio in, but his feet going through the water is not making any noise, So we've got to add all that back in. I haven't done any Foley for the fishing stuff yet, but everything is sounding really good. And if you'd like to follow the progress, you can watch these Twitch streams. You can go to thedarknessrolled-over-her.movie, which you see down below at the end of the screen. I'll left a link in the chat there. At thedarknessrolled-over-her.movie, you can get a copy of the ebook and the discussion guide of the film. You can watch the trailer to the movie. That's the website that you can send to other people to say, hey, do you know about this film? So please share it with a friend that you think might be interested. If you want to support in other ways and see other behind-the-scenes stuff, you can sign up on my Substack, skidmore.substack.com. And I hope to get Twitch subscriptions up and running soon if you'd like to support in that way. So I'll leave you with the trailer to the film. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been a fun thing for you to watch.